Yeah, and it's really sad because we've interviewed a couple of people on here, 3 or 4, and a few of them are friends of mine from Melbourne. And the tragedy of their stories is their friends, or the one guy, his daughter, sadly 2 guys I know, their kids, I think one of them was 14, the other one was 15, both took their own lives because of bullying at school. And I know, I'm pretty sure I'm right, that if anyone bullied you at school, I know what I did. And I just didn't take it, mate. Like if anyone bullied me, it'd end up into fisticuffs or whatever. But that's okay for me and others. But some people can't. Some people can't do that. They sponge the bullying on. And nowadays, with the internet, social media, sadly, there are young kids taking their lives because of it.
I told Doug about this, and I'm not sure if Doug recalled or not when we had a chat though. So I wasn't bullied in primary school because in primary school, kids are all pretty similar size. Once you get into high school, so in Australia, we have primary school, which is 7 years. So you've got kindergarten 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 6. And then we go into year 7 to 12. So there's another 6 years after that. And it's as your bodies change and then you eventually find your final height, your structure fills out short of, starting training or whatnot. You basically become the young man or the young woman you're going to become. So I've trained a lot in my life to get where I am, and it wasn't because of the bullying, but I was bullied at school. And I remember it started, so I was a pretty skinny, spindly fella, and it's not usually a point, but then I had to shave my head at one stage because in the school holidays, I dyed my hair, and our private schools over here are pretty strict. I went to St Gregory's College at Campbelltown, used to be a big football school back in the day. And I had to shave my head to get the colour out of my hair to go back to school. It was always short back and sides, like a navel sort of haircut,
Yeah.
And I used to get called prisoner of war. And what I was about to say then, I don't want it to sound anti-Semitic because I was called, Jew boy, prisoner of war. I don't mean any offence to anyone of that culture or race or religion because of that, but that's what I was called. That was the bullying terms. And I don't know it affected me that much because I didn't go and just start hitting the weights to get bigger. But when it came to fight time, because I was a small spindly fella and the bigger kids, I'd pick up stuff and throw it. Like I'd pick up chairs and pick up tables. And they used to love it because it kind of stir me up. I'd turn into the Tasmanian devil out of the Warner Brothers shows. I'd go nuts. And then eventually it worked because kids are, I'm not going to go near him. He's a psycho. And I'm still a psycho because I'm doing this walk now and you've got to be psychotic somewhat to do this walk. So, I can relate with the bullying and being a result of it. And it's funny, I hadn't actually talked about it much until I'd done this walk. And there's a lot of things that I hadn't talked about to anyone. And I don't think they were holding me back from certain things, but I thought I'd had a pretty easy life, but when I look back at a few things, it's not been hard, but I definitely had adversity, and the ability of me to share those stories with people can make me more relatable, which helps me get the message across. It's not so clinical, like you're sitting in front of a psychologist and they go, well, you need to do this, and some people look at psychologists and go, well, what happened in your life? What's your life story? And I think if a psychologist could open up and tell them that, I think they'd get a lot more rapport from the people they're working with. But maybe that delves into privacy issues and you never know who you're dealing with. So, but yeah.
Yeah, and you're right. It's all to do, all of it's to do with mental health somewhere along the line because it affects people, even the people doing it, the people who suffer from it. And, what you're doing is great because you're just doing something that a lot of people, like that young guy said, oh man, I couldn't do that. But he could if he had a real purpose, he could.
Yeah. She got over it. I was going to do this without a purpose. I really was.
Yeah, that's great.
Because I am nuts. But I had two very good mates of mine. One I just seen up at Airlie Beach. He goes, you'd be nuts to do this without a purpose. And I'm so glad it has a purpose because it's actually made it easier for me because the honk of the horn, that interaction there, that makes me want to go walk more than a marathon today, which I've already done 17 kilometers today, and I'll be pumping out another probably 40, 44 this afternoon after this.
Right. So how long will that take you, Matt, to do the 44?
About 9 to 10 hours, because I won't walk it straight through. I've got to pull up, rest my feet a little bit, and then go again because it's kind of like any sort of bodybuilding training or whatever. So you can go in, you can get under the bar and you pump out 10 reps and then you have a rest and then you can pump out 10 more. But if you were to jump under it and try to do 20 reps in a row, you wouldn't be able to achieve it. So you've got to have that rest in between. So you're still getting the volume out, but you're just having a break in between. So I walk, I think I explained it a little bit earlier. So now I crack a 16 out, have a rest, crack another 16 out, have a rest. But I was to do 32 in a row, it kind of starts to smoke you a little bit, smokes your hips, your heels, your toes. So about 9 hours to do 44 kilometres. 50 kilometres is 10 to 11 hours. Pretty much whatever the distance is in kilometres, if you double it and turn it into an hour, that's basically what it works out to be.
Okay. And do you plan like where you're going to sleep? Do you sleep in a camp on the side of the road? Do you have a hotel you've already organised to get to? Or
no, and I've kept it open and pretty loose because there are some days. Well, I haven't really had a short day. I think the shortest day I've had so far is 25 kilometres. But what I do is so, for instance, I have to get to Mackay for tomorrow, 6 p.m. here because it's World Suicide Prevention Day, and they do a lighting of tea lanterns to remember all the people that aren't with us anymore and the people that are left in the wake. And that I've been asked to talk at that, which will be my first public engagement, short of stuff like this, actually talking to people in front of people. So the local people at Mad Cow Coffee have invited me to do that. I have no idea how many people I'm going to talk in front of. It could be 10, could be 100, could be 200. I have no idea.
That's awesome.
So that I set my my days to that, and I don't have any engagements after that. But for my own self, I want to still stick to probably doing a marathon a day. Now, the part of Australia that I'm in, there is roughly every 50 to 60 kilometres a truck stop or a caravan park. So I've got a hammock, which is not really accessible right now, which is a Hennessy hammock that I can hang up between two distances, either poles or trees that I come across 5 to 6 metres.
Yeah,
that's quite a comfortable sleep. But last night I chose to be lazy. I didn't want to set up the hammock, so I've got a blow up mattress here, which just blows up with the bag. It's quite small and compact.
Yeah.
That turns into like a little sarcophagus shaped mattress, about the size of me. And I just put gumped in my sleeping bag, checked the weather for rain prior to that, nothing. About 1:30 this morning, I wake up and I'm like, oh shit, it started raining. It only rained for 30 seconds, but they were big drops and it was enough to wet me pretty good. I was basically in the middle of nowhere. There was no shelter for me to go to. What am I going to do? And then it stopped. I'm like, I looked up. I could see the stars again. I looked on the map. The bit of rain on the map was like the tiniest little bit of rain. It just went plop, 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 plop through the Doppler. I'm like, it's gone now. Sweet.